This is chapter 14 of The Wolf Wilder. In the half-burnt library, the children slept soundly, clustered together under blankets pilfered from their homes. The ballroom, with its marble floor, was too icy to sleep in, but the library was well insulated by books, and the sound of the sleeping children was soothing each time Theo woke with a cry in the night. Training to be a proper mob began the next morning. Alexei hustled the children from their beds. The warm fuzz of sleep was still on them, and nobody was pleased to be let into the ballroom, which was as cold as the snow outside. But nobody said no to Alexei. It would be like saying no to a whirlwind. Right. Alexei paced in front of them, his sleeves rolled up, his fringe held back by a band of cloth. We need to get warm before anyone can learn anything. Nobody can learn with a cold brain. I'll light a fire, said Theo. There's matches in Ilya's pack. No, said Alexei. We're running 30 laps of the ballroom. There were some groans. Anyone groaning, said Alexei, spends tonight outside with the wolves. Theo opened her mouth to object. It seemed unfair on the wolves, but Alexei's face was not the kind that left space for disagreement. Listen, he said. He spread out two hands. Children are smaller and weaker than adults. It's just a fact. So we need to be faster and braver. That's maths. You don't have to run, Theo, unless you want to. You won't be in a mob. Theo ran anyway. At first, it was fun to outrun everyone, streaking past the little ones, past Ilya's lolloping stride, which involved a lot of elbow movement. It would have been even faster if he moved more with his ankles and less with his knees, she thought, but resolved to tell him when Alexei was not there, and past Alexei himself. Alexei looked a little startled as she overtook him. He sped up, shoulders forward, his shirt coming untucked as he ran. Theo sped up too. He grunted as she passed him again, then turned his attention to Yana and Irina. You're running, he called, like someone's grading you on neatness. Run like wolves are after you. Theo refrained from pointing out that running, if wolves are after you, is more optimistic than useful. All right, he called. That's enough. Everyone sit on the floor. We've got dried apples somewhere. Vasilisa, will you hand them out? And then, under his breath to Theo, who taught you to run like that? Mama, Theo looked at her hands. If you grow up running in snow, running on waxed wood or stone is easy. I grew up thinking wolf pace was normal. To them, I'm slow. Theo excused herself from fighting. She had had enough of blood for the time being. She sat on the windowsill with the pup in her arms, feeding him milk from the tip of her finger. Alexei paced, lion-like, amongst the children as they sat looking up at him. We have one advantage when we reach the jail. The guards can't shoot children in front of other people. At least, he said. They can, but people seem to like it less. He looked pointedly at Sergei, who was biting his toenails. We honestly have no idea why. So, we're going to practice attacking. When we're in St. Petersburg, you'll be too frightened to think. You'll hesitate. But if your muscles know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, they'll do it even if your brains are scared. We're training to make your bodies braver than your brains, you see. That's what soldiers do. But I won't be scared, said Sergei. Last year, when lightning hit the oak tree, you wet the bed, said Bogdan. I did not. He looked, outraged, around his gang. The rain came through the ceiling. Just on your mattress, and nowhere else. Quiet, all of you, said Alexei. He rapped on the wall, but didn't stop the chatter. Listen to me. He was obviously struggling. Children are even harder to marshal, Theo thought, than wolves. She grinned and gave a tiny howl. Black picked it up immediately. The windows shook. Everyone jumped several inches. Quiet dropped on the room. Thank you. So, said Alexei, what was I saying? Oh yes, there are lots of things the guards have that we don't. They're trained. They have guns. But we're fast and light. We can climb up drain pipes. They can't follow. Our feet make less noise. They'll have forgotten the things they once knew. They'll have forgotten how to bite and how to spit and how to use their nails. And if we're not going to fight like gentlemen, you understand? Theo raised her eyebrows. Or like ladies, he added. When we get inside the jail, there are no rules. You can pull hair and kick them in the groin and bite earlobes, all right? Can we tie them up? Said Sergei. Yes, said Alexei. Good, yes. Can we pull out their beards? Yes, although actually I think beards are quite well anchored, but you can try. Can we kick people in the shins? I've always wanted to, but Mama says they break easily. Theo from her windowsill grinned. She knew what Sergei meant. Shins are so tempting. Yes. Can we? Yes. Everything yes. Remember, most vulnerable places are nose, groin, shins and eyes. The children stared up at him. Every single face was blazing with pleasure. What weapons will we have? Asked Irina. She looked a lot like Alexei, Theo thought, though less right-angled and less disconcertingly beautiful. Perhaps she was another cousin. I'm not sure yet. We're going to have to see what we can make. But for now, he said, we're going to practice. By the time the afternoon sun had made its way into the ballroom and thawed some of the frost that lined the windows, Theo was exhausted. It had been a shining kind of morning. First, Alexei cut the sleeves off their shirts. You freeze your arms, he said, and wound them into ropes. Then he sent out expeditions to cut down branches from the oddly shaped bushes and trees, waiting until snow was falling at its heaviest to mask their prints. They sharpened flint from the gravel path into knives and bound them to the tips of sticks for spears, wrapped securely with scraps from their shirts. Alexei lined them up from the smallest 5-year-old to Yana, soft-skinned and bold and brave, at the far end, and told them to parry, to stick and twist. Jab, he said. No, grip with your thumb, Sergei. Good, Zoya. Theo and Ilya, who Alexei had exempted from training. Soldier and wilder, he said. I've seen you with a knife, Theo, sat by the fireplace, and made more weapons. Theo warmed some yew she found over the fire until it was supple again. Look, she tugged some string from the curtains. A bow. Do you know how to make arrows? I think they taught us in the camp, said Ilya, but I wasn't listening. That was the day I worked out how to do a handspring. Every 20 minutes or so, Alexei used Theo and Ilya as targets for flint throwing, and they would be forced to duck and jump or retaliate with whatever they had around them. Trying to ignore him didn't work. Alexei hustled the children into doing press-ups, helping the littlest ones, nudging the older ones with his toe. He ran up and down the ranks, panting and shouting orders. Quiet, Sergei. You can talk later. For now you can nod, but only when I say so. Being around him was like being around an alarm clock, one that doesn't turn off, said Ilya. There was admiration in his voice. Alexei, Theo thought, went from naught to fiery in 30 seconds. He seemed to have no middle range, only hurry, anger, bossiness, laughter, and sleep. It's not that he's not good, Theo said to Black as dusk fell. He is good, yet there's so much of him. Theo, used to days of silence with her wolves, of whispers and fur and snowfall, found the room of children took some getting used to. The little ones came clamouring to her after their training sessions, pretending to be wolves and biting her knees, tying and untying her shoelaces, stroking the pup as he lay in her arms, begging to plait her hair. But when Alexei called, they returned without needing a second call. It would be easier to dislike him, said Ilya, if he wasn't so beautiful. He's like weather, said Theo. You can't dislike weather. But it was Theo, not Alexei, who taught Yana and Irina and Ilya to fistfight. Nobody, she explained, can grow up with wolves without learning to understand and measure pain. Fighting is as much about knowing when you're hurt as knowing how to hurt, said Theo. There are certain kinds of pain you can safely ignore, and some you can't. They wrapped their hands in cloth and learnt to punch. Don't tuck your thumb into your fist or it'll break. Twist your fist as you make contact. Make your knuckles sharp. That evening, Vasilisa and Zoya came running from their visit to the outhouse, full of news. There's a greenhouse. It's only got nettles, but they're alive. Theo allowed herself to be led by both hands out to the greenhouse. The glass was smoke-stained, but there were indeed whole beds of nettles. Nettles sprawling in pots and climbing to the ceiling, growing where flowers once had been. Theo whooped. Here, don't get stung. Wrap your hands in your cloaks. Can you carry some of these pots inside? Wonderful. The girls seemed tiny, but they piled the pots in their arms. Theo grinned down at them. They had the same eyes, she thought, as the pup, young and clever. Thank you. The rest of the plants Theo pulled up by the roots. Keeping her hands safely inside her cloak, she scrunched the leaves into a ball and welded them together with a little snow. If you got that in the face, she said, you wouldn't be able to see for at least a few minutes, maybe a few days. Vasilisa and Zoya gave thin, piping cheers from behind their pots of nettles. You two are far, far tougher than you look, said Theo. The girls turned pink. People usually are, I suppose, she went on. if you need them to be. Come on, Alexei smuggled some potatoes out from your village and we're roasting them with bacon. They were just settling the little ones down for the night when Theo first felt the jolt of something wrong. Listen, she said. Ilya, settling a blanket over Clara, stopped mid-tuck, but there was only the snuffling of the children's breath. Then she heard it again, the crunching of snow. Footsteps. They found us, she whispered. What is it? Asked Clara, half awake. Theo held her finger to her lips. What's going on? Asked Alexei. He had been standing in the window seat, the better to keep watch. Are they coming? He tore a strip off the curtain and wrapped it round his fist. Can you hear that? Asked Ilya. More footsteps, the shaking of the iron gate at the end of the drive. That's a person, said Theo, looking out of the window. I can't see anything though. It's too dark. Rakov, said Alexei. I don't know. You should leave, Theo, said Ilya. Take the wolves now and go. Yes, we can hold them up, said Sergei. You've never fought anyone before, said Bogdan. That's why I should start now, while I'm still young, said Sergei. It took an immense effort not to hug him. They took branches from the study fire for light and marched down the marble stairs, Theo first, Yana bringing up the rear with Clara on her hip. Theo looked at the pile of glass from her break-in. We can make snowballs with glass in them. Who wants to do that? Unsurprisingly, Sergei wanted to. And Bogdan, you've got good aim. Will you? Bogdan blushed and sniffed and nodded, all in one fluid motion. All right. And there's nettles in the hall. Put them in the snowballs too. Make a big pile of them, if you can. We need lots. Yana, will you stand guard over them? And here, Vasilisa, Zoya, here's my knife. If anyone comes through the window, I'm giving you permission to stab their ankles. I'm scared, whispered Vasilisa. I know, Lapushka. Me too. Theo crouched and stared them in the eyes, speaking at double speed. And I don't know where courage comes from, but I do know that if you can scrape together just a bit, more of it comes to you without trying, all right? So you don't need a great lump of bravery, only a tiny breath of it. Can you do that? They nodded, eyes solemn, hand in hand. Wonderful. I'll be right back. She ran upstairs, her bow lay by the fireplace. She snatched it up and slid down the banister back to the hall and skimmed over the marble floor to the kitchen. Ilya followed, rolling up his sleeves. The children felt arctic, and icicles hung from the ceiling. Look, she pulled off one of the icicles, latched it onto the bow like an arrow. See? She pulled them down in handfuls. Some were blunt at the end, some as sharp as pins. She handed the bow to Ilya. You take this. What about you? I've got the wolves, Alexei. She called. I think everyone should be in the hall. Alexei's voice rang out. Everyone on the staircase, bring a torch. The children grouped on the staircase, their hands full of snowballs and burning torches. Theo looked up at them, a band of beautiful would-be criminals, and her nose prickled with love. And somebody knocked on the front door. Theo swallowed. She hadn't expected knocking. Ilya pulled back his icicle arrow. The door swung open. Ilya sent an icicle shattering against the wall. The laughter that came from the man in the doorway did not sound very military. And the body was tall, lean and strong, grey-haired and dressed in rich blue satin. The children let out a battle yell. Ilya gasped. Don't attack, he cried. Cease fire! This, said the stranger, raising two heavily ringed hands above his head, was not what I expected. I was looking for a boy. I seem to have found an army. He stared up at the children on the staircase, cast into flickering bronze by the fire in their hands, at the wolves still clad in gold. Is this some kind of theatre? No, said Ilya. It's a mistake, I think. A change came over the man, the change that you see at sunrise. He laughed at Ilya, still standing with an icicle fitted to his bow. Not a mistake at all, he said. It was you I came to find. It took a while to persuade Sergei to stop trying to tuck nettles in the man's socks and to send the others to bed. The night was well advanced by the time they sat down on the floor of the small parlour room, with its charred pink paper and smiling cherubs on the ceiling and the burnt piano. Theo had boiled water on the fire and made mugs of sweet nettle tea, which the man held at arm's length, as if it might be contagious. Theo and Ilya sat cross-legged and waiting. The man looked awkward, as if he were more used to armchairs. Black sat in the doorway, a just-in-case glare in his eyes. As you may know, as you should know, young man, my name is Darikev. Darikev, Ilya looked from Theo to the man and back again. Igor Derikev. Who's that? Said Theo. That's me, said Derikev. It seems a rather circular conversation. Young man, when we last met, I was chasing you. Yes, sorry about that. I was not, as you seem to think, pursuing with intent to eat you, nor to arrest you. So why are you here? Said Theo. I came to offer this young man a place at my ballet school. Presumably, you did not think I came for vodka or coffee, given you seem to be living on snow and plants here. His voice and the smartness of his clothes had made Theo suddenly shy again, but she managed to whisper, Is he very good? No, said Derikev. He's not. Ilya's face went suddenly white and he stared hard at the floor. But you said, He's not good yet, but his elevation. Theo shook her head. I don't know that word. Derikev raised his hand above his head. The boy has height when he jumps, greater than anyone I have in my company. He has a body built for flying. Ilya's white cheeks immediately turned purple. Theo nudged him and resisted the urge to bite his shoulder with the glee of it. So he'll be fabulous. He'll be famous. Perhaps, perhaps not. Derikev heaved himself to his feet. It's hard work, young man. I offer you a place, only if you understand that. Some grow rich, many do not. Dancers, they are not always respected. They often find it hard to marry. Ilya fiddled with his lip. That's not a problem for me, he said. I have always known I wouldn't marry. Derikev nodded. And your feet will bleed, your body will ache, every day. And on the few days that your body doesn't ache, your brain will. Understand that. Nobody joins without learning our history, the story behind our dances, reading, recitation. He thumped one jeweled hand into the other. Hard work always hurts somewhere. Theo grinned. It sounded so familiar, so much like living with wolves. Ilya grinned back at her. But, said Derikev, it's a living. You will dance for millions of people in your lifetime. If you're good enough, they will never forget you. You will become fluent in a new language. Thousands of children will see your feet talking a kind of language they will long to know. You will unearth other people's dreams for them. Do you hear that, boy? And you, girl? People come away from the ballet knowing more than they knew before. You become strong. As strong as Theo, said Ilya. I imagine so. Who is Theo? I am, Theo said softly. Ah, the young woman with wolves. I've heard rumours about you. Yes, I imagine so. So, what's your answer, boy? Come back with me? There's a horse waiting outside the gates. And a driver. Ilya's hand reached out and searched for Theo's. Theo grabbed his tight. He said, I first saw a ballet when I was 6. You said that when you first wilded a wolf. It wasn't very smart. There were gravy stains on some of the tutus. They wore gloves, and some of them were quite slow. But everything there made sense to me, like with you and the wolves and the snow. Then what are you waiting for? She said. Her smile was so huge that she felt it might split her lips at the sides. Ilya turned to Derikev. No, I can't, he said. Not now. You need to inform your parents? We can do that. There's a secretary who looks after the students' affairs. We're a business, my boy. No, not my father. He wouldn't care. But I've got to do some things here. Derikev raised the edge of a perfectly pointed eyebrow. I have no time for those who are not fully committed, boy. Come now, or not at all. Truly, it's not that I don't want to. I can't. Theo towed him across the room to the window. Ilya, what are you doing? You have to go. There are enough of us without you. Don't you want me to help? I thought we were friends. Of course I want you. Theo tried to think of words to explain. None of them fitted the special circumstances of a boy who could dance like a war song, and who was scared of the cold, and who had followed her for miles without once complaining. You were in the pack, me and black and white, and the pup, and you. Gray let you ride her. That makes you one of us. Yes, said Ilya. Well then, I'm staying, aren't I? But that man's offering you so much. He's offering you years. He's offering you a whole life. No, if it's one or the other, I choose you and the wolves. Do you think Derikev would let you stay a bit longer if I bit him? She asked. Or if the wolves did? They would, I think, if we showed them how. Probably. They'd want to help you. From just behind her came a roar of laughter. Darakev had stepped soundlessly across the room and stood inches away from them. "No need," he said. Theo coloured. "It was just a suggestion." "I'm a superstitious old man," he said. "I choose not to interfere in the business of wolves. If those animals have some need of you, young man, it will be best to go. I can give you 3 days. Ask at the front door for Igor, and they'll organise everything. You will need a haircut, and I would be grateful if you left the wolves behind. I can show myself out, thank you, as long as there are no nettle-wielding children awaiting me." Theo slept very little that night. It was barely dawn when she woke the children. "What's happening?" said Sergei. "What happened to the man you wouldn't let us kill?" "Ilya's dealt with him. Come, let's go," said Theo. "Let's go and find Rakov."